Do you find it hard sometimes to stay grounded when you are performing? Do you find it hard to stay kind of in the space, in the now, where you can stay connected to what's going on? Last week in my podcast, I promised that I would talk about a method to stay grounded. Hi, I'm Hattie Voelcker from Find Your True Voice, and I help singers and performers and public speakers feel comfortable and confident in front of any audience, even their most daunting one. And if you find it hard to stay grounded and connected, or to be confident in front of various audience, or perhaps every audience, then drop me an email at hattie@findyourtruevoice.co.uk, and I will answer you personally and fairly quickly to give you some strategies if you tell me your story and what you're struggling with. So grounding, what do I mean by that? I had a discussion with my Courageous Club the other day, which is a group of performers, and we get together to talk about strategies for remaining courageous and stretching their skill zone and stretching their comfort zone all the time. And we realized that people have different ideas of what grounded means. Now, there are some people I talk to who have this very clear image of grounded, and that kind of really means like their feet firmly feeling on the floor or the ground or the stage, and them feeling in their body. Because a lot of people I work with, they go up into their heads. They go up into this space because they rely on this space as a place to solve problems and keep control of things. And that often takes them out of their body. So for them, being grounded is being in their body, embodied, so to speak, rather than grounded. This tendency to go into your head to solve problems is something I used to do an awful lot of the time, because I figured that actually the best part of me was my conscious mind. I thought of myself as a bit of an intellectual. I was a philosopher in my first degree, and then I became a barrister. So a lot of cerebral work and analytical work. And this part of me, my head, I thought was the best part of me and would be the bit that solved all my problems. And I disregarded my subconscious, my body and my emotions as being not much use to me. Well, more fool me. That's probably what led me to end up with a chronic illness, postural tachycardia syndrome, because I became really disconnected from my body. In fact, I remember one coaching session in the early days where I ended up in a space talking to my illness as if it was the third person. But it was really fascinating. And I realized how disconnected I was from my body. And what I find these days, not only with my clients, but also with myself, that actually getting back into your body is what grounds you. And I remember in a live workshop, I was working with somebody, and with their permission, I asked if I could touch various points on their body. So, for example, their feet. And as soon as I touched their feet, I heard their voice. They were singers. I heard their voice drop into their body and become more resonant. And it was easier to hear their words because they'd stopped being all up in their headspace. And you also got greater resonance from their body. I also touched their fingertips and their shoulders, and all of that brought them into their body. How can you achieve that for yourself? Well, one simple tip is to think about your toes. I know it's a bit of a strange thing, but just think about your toes, because they're the furthest south part of your body. Think about how they feel and whether they're hot or cold. Have you got tight shoes or loose shoes? Do you have any shoes on at all? That simple bit of physicality I've used many times over with singers, even over Zoom. And again, I watch them drop into their space and reconnect with the audience, as well as be able to communicate their message. And it works with public speakers as well. It's that same idea. So really, that is a simple form of mindfulness. And there are all sorts of mindfulness exercises you can do. And Dan Siegel does a Wheel of Awareness meditation. And you can look up Dan Siegel and Wheel of Awareness. I'll try and put the link to his website with this podcast episode, because you can actually enhance your ability to practice mindfulness by practicing it, by repeating it day in, day out. I've discovered the more I practice mindfulness, the better I am at it in the space, and the easier it is for me to tap into that when I really need it. And one of the other things I do when I'm on stage is I look at the audience. Now, mostly I'm on stage with public speaking these days, and I would previously have been quite terrified of looking at my audience. But when you look at your audience, it is a form of mindfulness, and it reconnects you with the outside world. And that also grounds you. It brings you into the present. So there's thinking about your physicality, and that will start to ground you. There's thinking about the outside world, and that will ground you. That idea of looking outwards brings you into the present space. Eckhart Tolle and the Power of Now. When you look outwards, you are much more present. And one final thing that I want to talk about is your breathing, because you can often forget to breathe. Now, I'm not talking about manipulating your breathing or breathing in a particular way. I'm just talking about noticing if you stop breathing. Where is your breath right now? Or you could use your balance in the same way. Where am I balanced in my body? Because again, that brings you to the present moment. Now, I said one final thing, but actually I've just thought of another thing that I use to bring myself to the present and ground myself. It's reminding myself what I want to communicate. What is it I want the audience to take away from this? What's my reason for being here? Because we can get so tied up in the how. How am I communicating? Am I doing it well enough? That we forget the what. We forget to think about what I want them to take away from this. What is in this song? What is in this speech? What is in this podcast? What do I want you to take away from this? What I'd like you to take away from this is a number of different ways you can ground yourself when you're in a performance, because then you can try them out. You can use all of them, as I do, or some of them, or just one of them. You can start with one of them and spread out to using more of them, because the more tools you have in your toolbox, the more, this metaphor is being stretched to its limit, the more equipment you have to use to facilitate grounding yourself. Because when you're grounded, you're present. And when you're present, you can connect with your audience. And when you connect with your audience, they're more likely to get something from your performance. And when they get something from your performance, they like you more, they think you're better, and you get that wonderful sense of good feedback, which boosts what you're doing, and you feel more comfortable doing what you're doing, and then you get better at it. And that's the upward cycle. But it starts with being present and grounded. So, to recap quickly, think about your toes or other parts of your body to ground yourself. Focus outwards on your audience. Notice things in the room. Notice what's going on out there. But focus on your audience is a really useful tool. Number 3, where's your breath and where's your balance? Where are you in the space? And number 4, what's the reason you're there? What is it you want your audience to take from this? What would you like to communicate? And all of these things will bring you into the present. And the more present you are, the more grounded you are, the better you can communicate. I hope that's given you some tools that you can use to ground yourself in the present, so that you stop floating up into your head or floating away into yourself from fear, and can really start to enjoy your performances more. If you'd like some more help with all of this sort of stuff, then ping me an email at hattie@findyourtruevoice.co.uk. Tell me what your story is, and I'll do my best, my very best, to help you. Thank you very much for listening to this episode, and I look forward to seeing you sometime soon.